Dr. Evelyn Reed trusted her mentor, Professor Alistair Thorne, with her life's work, a revolutionary Alzheimer's breakthrough. In return, he stole the research, published it under his name for a chance at the Nobel, and publicly framed Evelyn as a fraudster. Ruined and discredited, Evelyn refused to seek slow legal justice. Instead, she spent 2 years in cold isolation, dissecting the professor's fabricated data. She knew the only way to destroy him was to use the one thing he couldn't fake: pure science. Watch how a single cold scientific flaw exposed his multi-million-dollar lie on the world stage. The air in the neuroscience labs at the prestigious Boston institution was always thin, smelling of disinfectant and ambition. Dr. Evelyn Reed lived for that air. For 7 years, she had worked shoulder to shoulder with Professor Alistair Thorne, the celebrated figurehead of their department. Evelyn was the engine. Thorne was the conductor. Together, they achieved a breakthrough in early-stage Alzheimer's diagnosis, a potential scientific Nobel Prize, and certainly a colossal fortune in patent licensing. Evelyn idolized Thorne, trusting him implicitly as both a mentor and a friend. When the breakthrough was finalized, Thorne called an emergency meeting. Evelyn expected congratulations, shared credit. Instead, she received a cold, clinical execution. Thorne presented a pre-written statement to the university dean and the general counsel, claiming he had discovered severe irregularities in Evelyn's documentation. He announced that Evelyn was being terminated immediately for unauthorized use of proprietary data and attempting to claim sole authorship of the final discovery. The reality was revealed the next day. Thorne published the revolutionary paper in The Lancet, his name alone stamped across the title page. Thorne didn't just steal the research. He fabricated a defense. To cover the blatant theft and Evelyn's sudden disappearance, he concocted a fictitious original data set, slightly inferior to their final result, claiming this fake data was the true foundation of his work and that Evelyn had tried to steal his foundation and tamper with his results. He gave interviews portraying himself as a dedicated scholar who had narrowly averted a crisis of academic fraud perpetrated by his ambitious but unstable junior researcher. Evelyn was instantly discredited, her career destroyed by the man she had trusted most. No one in the tight-knit academic community believed the story of the brilliant young scientist over the celebrated Professor Alistair Thorne. Evelyn was forced out, disgraced, watching her life's work become Thorne's triumphant legacy. Legal action was impossible. Thorne had sealed the official lab records, and the university's priority was protecting its reputation, not its victim. Evelyn was devastated, moving from the brink of professional success to absolute obscurity in a matter of days. The pain wasn't just losing the credit. It was watching a beloved mentor commit moral suicide and then publicly smear her honor. Her despair didn't last. The intellectual rigor that made her a brilliant neuroscientist slowly calcified into cold, focused rage. She rejected the idea of fighting over authorship, a battle of he said/she said she could never win. She realized her revenge had to be scientific, absolute, and publicly undeniable. Her target wasn't the theft of the final paper. Her target was the fraud itself. Thorne's fabricated original data that underpinned his entire defense. Evelyn retreated to a small, windowless office, funded by what remained of her savings. She spent the next 2 years doing one thing: analyzing Alistair Thorne's invented data. She knew the experimental conditions, the lab protocols, the biological constraints of their trials. She recognized the precise, subtle flaws that proved the data was not only manipulated but scientifically impossible to have been generated under the conditions Thorne claimed. The statistical variances, the cellular response curves, the impossibility of certain readings given the temperature and timing. Thorne, focusing on the large publishable result, had overlooked the microscopic, forensic details only the true architect of the research would know. Her revenge would be slow, methodical, and delivered at the height of his fame. Thorne was scheduled to present the 5-year follow-up on his discovery at the World Congress of Neurology, the single most important academic stage on the planet. Evelyn began compiling a separate, devastating analysis, transforming complex neuroscientific data into a crystal-clear, irrefutable argument. She was preparing not a legal brief, but a scientific execution. The World Congress of Neurology in Washington, D.C. was a glittering assembly of the world's most powerful medical minds. Professor Alistair Thorne was the keynote speaker. His session sold out, his profile radiant with the promise of a Nobel. He was celebrating the 5-year anniversary of his discovery, the moment he would solidify his fraudulent legacy and move toward unimaginable wealth. Dr. Evelyn Reed was also in the city, but she was entirely invisible, booking a small, obscure room in a neighboring hotel. Evelyn had finalized her counter-analysis. She focused on one specific parameter of Thorne's fabricated data: the consistency of the early-stage cellular decay rate over a 12-hour period. In Thorne's published documentation, the decay rate was perfectly linear, an elegant, clean line that satisfied the statistical model. Evelyn's forensic analysis proved that, given the specific chemical agents and environmental controls used in their lab, details Thorne could never replicate accurately, a linear decay rate was biologically impossible. The real decay rate, as Evelyn's original data showed, was exponential, characterized by a sudden drop at the 5-hour mark due to a known enzymatic reaction. Thorne's perfectly linear data was beautiful and utterly fake. Evelyn didn't submit her paper through official channels, knowing Thorne's influence would have it buried. Instead, she leveraged her last remaining contact, a former colleague who was now a non-voting member of the Congress Ethics Board. She anonymously sent her full forensic proof and the scientific rationale to him hours before Thorne's keynote, along with a statement: "If the data is linear, the research is fraud. If it's exponential, it's mine." Thorne took the stage to a standing ovation, beginning his presentation with a condescending smile. He detailed the rigorous integrity of his original dataset, displaying the infamous, perfectly linear graph on the massive screen behind him. He spoke of his hard work after the unfortunate incident with his former colleague. During the Q&A segment, the ethics board member, now armed with Evelyn's meticulous forensic proof, rose to speak. His question was surgical, targeting the exact flaw Evelyn had identified. "Professor Thorne, regarding the early-stage cellular decay rate in your foundational data, your published work shows a linear decrease. However, given the established enzymatic pathway of agent beta, shouldn't the rate be predictably exponential, exhibiting a sharp drop around the 5-hour mark?" Thorne's practiced calm instantly evaporated. His face, visible on the immense projection screen, went slack with sudden, paralyzing realization. He knew the biological truth. It was a detail only the true architect of the experiment would recall, and he had forgotten to fake the scientific reality behind the published statistics. He stammered, attempting to dismiss the question as a minor technical discrepancy. But the academic elite in the room understood the implications immediately. A linear decay in that context was statistically gorgeous, but scientifically impossible. It meant the foundational data supporting his Nobel-worthy paper was fabricated. The whispers in the auditorium grew into a deafening roar. Evelyn watched the televised stream from her anonymous hotel room. She felt no adrenaline, only the profound, cold satisfaction of scientific symmetry. Thorne's betrayal was based on a lie. Her revenge was based on the unyielding truth of the scientific method. The aftermath was immediate and total. The university launched a public investigation. The Lancet retracted the paper within 24 hours. Thorne was stripped of all titles and positions. His career, built on a mountain of fraud and ruined by a scientific flaw he was too arrogant to foresee, disintegrated. Evelyn never sought to publish her original work again. Her name was eventually cleared by the university investigation, and her honor was restored. She opened her own small, fiercely independent research firm. The ultimate revenge wasn't the prize. It was proving the truth and watching the man who had stolen her future lose everything, all thanks to a scientific detail he was too self-important to remember. Evelyn's revenge was the scientific equivalent of a nuclear strike, total and absolute. Professor Thorne's fraud was undone not by a lawyer, but by the undeniable truth of a scientific constant, he was too arrogant to remember. The question is, what is more precious to protect, financial wealth or intellectual property? Tell us your thoughts on this academic betrayal below. If you love stories of strategic comebacks and ultimate justice, hit the like button and subscribe to Dramatic Paths.